Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel Anime World, where from now I will be posting regular what if Naruto fanfics for you guys. If you like my content, then please like, share and subscribe to my channel. I have attached proper credits to the writer in the description, and a huge shout out to him for writing such an amazing story.
The date is October 10th and it is an autumn evening in the village hidden in the leaves. A figure stands atop the Hokage monument. He is wearing blue shinobi pants, tape on his legs and blue shinobi sandals. He is also wearing a matching top with baggy long sleeves. Over this he is wearing a white ankle-length, short-sleeved cloak with a red flame motif design along the bottom that is moving in the wind. He has shaggy blonde hair with sideburns that frame his heart-shaped face. He is also wearing a hidden leaf headband which is keeping his bangs back. This is none other than the Yondaime Hokage, Minato Namikaze. The man known and feared throughout the entire shinobi world as the Yellow Flash, Karoi Senko. Armed with his Hiraishin no Jutsu, Flying Thunder God technique, many believed him to be the fastest shinobi who ever lived, with the Yondaime Raikage being the only person who could rival him in this respect. Minato was reported to have single-handedly faced and killed over 1,000 IWA shinobi at the Battle of Kanabi Bridge and ended the Third Shinobi World War. Minato is standing on his stone head on the Hokage monument overlooking a scene of absolute chaos. Smoke is rising into the sky and smothering the light of the full moon and the stars. Screams of fear can be heard clearly, even from where he is. A giant creature with red fur, crimson blood-thirsty eyes and 9 swinging tails can be seen below, destroying the hidden leaf with shinobi desperately trying to stop it and failing. The Kyubi no Yoko. The most powerful of all the 9 Biju. Legend had it could level mountains and raise tsunamis with a swing of its tails. Right now it was proving its legend to have some truth to it. Minato is thinking about the events that led to this very moment. It all began with the pregnancy. 9 months ago he and Kushina had found out she was pregnant with quadruplets. They were ecstatic. The two were in disbelief over how they were going to be parents. However, there was a slight issue. Kushina's seal. Kushina was the Jinchuriki of the Kyubi. In a Jinchuriki's life there was one time where the seal holding her Biju weakened considerably. This was during childbirth. The chakra usually used for maintaining the seal was directed towards the maintenance of the fetus, or in Kushina's case fetuses. Thus when Hiruzen found out, he demanded the matter be handled with the utmost secrecy. And that was what was done. The pregnancy was kept a secret. When the time came, the children were to be delivered in a secret location with a barrier erected and the ANBU Black Ops who were part of the 3rd security detail on guard. The deliveries were a success. Naruto, their firstborn son, had come first. He had tufts of blonde hair atop his head and whisker-like markings on his cheeks. An hour later their first daughter was born. Mito. She had her mother's silk-like blood-red hair and cream-colored skin. Not long after this their second son came. Menma. He had tufts of black and red hair atop his head. Like his sibling, he has 3 whisker-like marks on each of his cheeks. Just 15 minutes after this, Yayoi, their youngest and second daughter, was welcomed into the world. She had Minato's blonde hair, only it was a shade lighter. Minato looked at his children with a smile. He had really become a father. Just as he was about to rebuild the seal, he turned around to see Biwako and the other midwife drop to the ground dead. A cloaked hooded man wearing an orange mask with a tiger stripe-like design with one eye hole and the fully developed 3-tomo Sharingan of the Uchiha visible through it was standing there with a kunai in hand in front of the cradle that held the children. He told him to step away from Kushina or they would die. Minato didn't know what to do and the man attempted to follow through on his promise. Minato saved the children, but he had been forced to use his teleportation jutsu and left Kushina in the hands of the enemy, whose plan he realized was to separate them from the beginning. He used the Hiraishin seal that he had incorporated into her seal to get to her, but he was too late. The masked man had ripped the Kyubi out of her body and she informed him of his intention to use it to destroy the village. Minato was devastated. He knew the consequences of a Biju being ripped from its Jinchuriki's body like that. Of course the masked man had infiltrated the village and summoned the Kyuubi right in the middle of it. That was all that led to the current. Minato inhales and exhales deeply. He had already found Tsunade and taken her to Kushina's location. He hoped that, by some miracle, she would be able to save her. I've allowed myself enough selfishness, he says internally. It's time to protect the village. Meanwhile below, the Kyuubi must have sensed his presence because the fox turned its head and looked straight at the Hokage monument. It opens its mouth revealing its fangs. Small balls of blue and red chakra begin to form and converge on the spot at its mouth until a giant purple ball of chakra has formed. The Baijidama, tailed beast bomb. An attack only the Biju are capable of. One that could destroy entire armies and leave a scar upon the very face of the earth in a second. The Kyuubi takes aim before releasing the bomb, sending it flying at the Hokage monument. You won't have to your way here, he defiantly declares. He begins weaving through hand signs before shouting, Hiraishin, Dorai, flying Raijin, guiding thunder jutsu, ... A complex sealing formula appears in the air in front of the monument. When the bomb reaches its momentum stops. It begins to sink into the sealing array until it can't be seen. Minato then holds up a Hiraishin kunai and an explosion is seen in the distance. Minato has no time to examine his handiwork. He whips around, a kunai in hand, in an attempt to behead the masked man who had tried to sneak up on him. His attack goes right through the man as if he isn't there. When his hand comes out on the other side, the man grabs his wrist. A swirling distortion formed in the air with the masked man's only visible eye being the epicenter. Minato suddenly sees himself being pulled into the man. Acting fast, he activates the Hiraishin. Minato finds himself laying on the ground next to one of his kunai in front of another one of his safe houses, this being the one destroyed earlier. My attack slipped through him as if he wasn't even there, he thought, getting up. The same distortion from before appears and out of it the masked man materializes. So he can use space-time ninjutsu as well, assessed Minato. Minato begins to analyze the situation. Why did you attack Konoha? He questions. The masked man simply stares at Minato. I could say I did it on a whim and I could say I did it for a purpose. I could say I did it for peace and I could say I did it for war. Minato begins to assess the situation. He was able to get past a top-secret barrier, kill all the ANBU Black Ops on guard who were assigned to the 3rd security detail, and he knew about the seal weakening during childbirth. He was also able to break the tame the Kyuubi and get past Konoha's main barrier undetected. Could it be? Are you Madara Uchiha? No, it's impossible. He's dead. I wonder about that. Replied the masked man, taking out what appeared to be a pair of shackles and putting them on. Well, I guess it doesn't matter who he is. He's still not an ordinary shinobi. His spacetime ninjutsu surpasses mine and Lord Second's, and he's got dangerous ideology. I'll have to take him down here and now or he'll cause problems in the future, Minato internally said. The two run at each other. Minato attempts to stab his opponent only for his attack to pass right through him. When he passes through him, Madara uses the chain of his shackles to stop Minato and bind him. Minato quickly disappears and reappears kneeling next to one of his kunai. He's trying to use that chain as an effective method of attack for whenever he materializes, which is the only time he can attack. He can pull objects in but only when touching them. With the Kyuubi's summoning time limit on his mind, he'll want to end this as quick as possible. He gets up and the two run at one another again, Minato with a Hiraishin kunai in hand. Whoever is faster wins this battle. Minato throws his kunai at the masked ninja and like before it goes through him. A Rasengan, spiraling sphere, suddenly forms in his right hand while the enemy is using his to try to touch Minato's left shoulder and end the battle. It looks as if the masked man has the upper hand. His hand is less than a millisecond away from touching Minato. I win, he internally voices. Minato appears above the enemy, the kunai he threw in hand. He brings his Rasengan down, drilling it into the masked man's back, causing cracks to form in the ground and dirt to be kicked up. Ah! He teleported himself to his kunai. When Minato's Rasengan dissipates, there is a Hiration mark on the spot he hit on his back. Ah! The masked man's hand begins to melt and fall off somehow. You really are a flash. I let my guard down for a second and dash. He doesn't get to finish as Minato appears in front of him with his hand on his stomach. A Kyaku Fuin, contract seal, the says, seeing a complex sealing formula spread across his body. The Kyuubi is no longer yours, Minato declares. He jumps back, the enemy having been defeated. It doesn't matter. You winning this battle is only prolonging the inevitable. I plan to rule the world. There's plenty of ways to go about doing that. He says in a serious tone, disappearing, leaving Minato worried. Meanwhile in Konoha. The battle rages on. Several shinobi are trying to subdue the Kyuubi but are unsuccessful so far. None notice, but its eyes revert from the normal pupil with 3 dots at the very edge of the iris to an eye with just a slit for a pupil. We'll push the Kyuubi out of the village. Advance, the third orders. The shinobi all comply, running forward to occupy the demon. The Sandai meanwhile bites his thumb, weaves through some hand signs before slamming his hand down. A poof of smoke follows, and when the smoke clears, standing next to him is none other than Monkey King Emma. Did the seal fail? He questions. The former Hokage nods. We have to push the Kyuubi out of the village. There is a poof of smoke, and when it clears, a large black staff stands in his place. Hiruzen grabs it, places under his arm and yells, "Adamantine staff, extend." It complies as it suddenly extends its length, the tip rushing out to meet the Kyuubi. It hits the fox in the chest, pushing the beast back until it is out of the village. It's out. Don't stop. Advance and attack, orders the aged Kage. Minato appears atop the Hokage monument once again, this time on the third's head, just in time to see another Baijidama being gathered. He weaves through hand signs. A sealing formula appears in the air above the Kyuubi. There is a giant poof and a giant toad falls on top of the Kyuubi. Gamabunta, the chief toad, he boss summon of all toads. Minato teleports himself atop Gamabunta just as the 9 tails begins forming another tailed beast bomb. I'm sorry Kushina, Minato says, gathering chakra. He needs to get this as far away from the village as possible. Hiruzen realizes what Minato is gathering chakra for and runs towards him. Sandim-sama, protest the shinobi. Hiruzen jumps onto the Kyuubi, and before anyone can do anything, the 9 tails, Minato and Hiruzen are gone. An explosion is seen in the distance. Over there. Let's hurry. Scene of explosion. The safe house Minato teleported to with the Biju and Hiruzen at the last moment is destroyed. Crying can be clearly heard. Minato, what's going on? Kushina asked. She looked a bit better. I'm sorry Kushina. It was the only way. The Kyuubi was going to destroy the village. Hiruzen and Tsunade run up towards the two, Tsunade holding Menma and Mito while Hiruzen is holding the Naruto and Yayoi. A growl is heard by the group. They turn to see the 9 tails getting up. Kushina claps her hands together. Kongo Fusa, adamantine sealing chains. Yellow chains made of a special kind of chakra. The chains drill into the ground before come up and wrapping around the 9 tails. Listen all of you. I'm going to use what little strength I have left to seal the Kyuubi inside of myself and take it with me into the afterlife. No, Kushina. The man who did this wasn't the last the village will see of him, he said, confusing Tsunade and Hiruzen. The beast's power will be needed to fight against him when he returns. If I seal half the Kyuubi in myself and the other half in one of Dash. There's no need for either of you to do that. They turn to see Hiruzen with Naruto and Yayoi in his arms. I will seal the fox using the Shiki Fujin, dead demon consuming seal, in conjunction with the Hak no Fuin Shiki, 8 trigram seal, he says in a tone of finality. I don't know what's the cause of the events that have transpired tonight, but I know the fate of the Konoha and perhaps the world is on the line. And that's all I need to know. Sandim-sama. No, Minato. My time has come and gone. You on the other hand have just become Hokage. You achieving this at such an age is symbolic of the next generation stepping in. And you're a father now. Your children will need you to be there for them. It is time the baton was passed. Very well, Hiruzen, he relented with a frown, knowing these are the man's last moments. Meanwhile the Kyuubi is thrashing about, desperately attempting to free itself, but to no avail. He knows he is strong enough, but his chakra isn't gathering. This feeling. My chakra won't gather. I feel paralyzed. It's not Kushina's Kongo Fusa. It's... He looks ahead and his eyes fall on Naruto, that brat. His chakra. With it he's unconsciously suppressing mine. His chakra feels just like. Kurama thinks of a certain shinobi who lived ages ago. He had the ability to subdue him and his brothers and was a leaf ninja. Could it be he has the same ability? The group has finished setting up the ritual altar. The Kyuubi is much too large to seal in one child, so I will split it amongst them. Its chakra I will divide into 3 equal parts and seal into 3 of them, while the beast itself I will seal into 1 of them. Minato. He sighs. Naruto, he's the eldest. Hiruzen nods. He weaves through hand signs and the Shinigami is summoned from his realm. The Shinigami puts his hand through Hiruzen, making him feel an indescribable cold. No. The fox protests, but to avail, as its chakra it ripped from it. Then the Kyuubi itself is sealed in Naruto. Hiruzen feels himself being to fade. He falls to the ground. The 3 gather around him with Tsunade carrying 2 of the children and Minato the other 2. Tsunade, I want you to know I'm proud of you, and tell Orochimaru and Jiraiya the same, he says, making her tear up. And Tsunade, I know it's hard, but I want you to open your heart again. I want you to learn to love once more. He turns to Kushina. Kushina. From that little I welcomed to the leaf years ago, you've grown into a splendid, strong woman. Lady Mito would be proud, he says as she struggles to hold back the tears. He finally turns to Minato. Well done, my boy. You've done me proud. I leave the village in your hands, he says, handing him 4 scrolls, each holding the key to each seal. Minato nods. I won't let you down, he says, determined. Hiruzen looks up at the moon. He hasn't had a bad life. He regrets a few things, like not being able to be with his wife in the afterlife and letting his best friend slip into darkness. He closes his eyes, breathes his final breath and allows death to claim his soul, dying with a smile on his face. 7 years and 11 months after the Kyuubi attack. Two-san, look I did it, is the excited shout of a young blonde-haired girl looking about 7 to 8 years old. She has silky blonde hair that went a little past her shoulders in a low ponytail in a shed similar to that of a Yamanaka, with sky-blue eyes. She is currently wearing a pair of yellow cargo shorts with a plain red shirt with a spiral on its back. She had what seemed to be 3 sister marks on her cheeks. This was Yayoi Uzumaki Namikaze, the youngest child of Kushina Uzumaki the Red Death and Minato Namikaze the Yellow Flash, Karoi Senko. Good job Yayoi, now we just have to wait for Menmabaka to stick the leaf already, then we can get to learning cool jutsus like Tusan's Rasengan. This came from a young red-haired girl with hair that ran down just past her shoulders, with bright blue eyes, wearing a tan sleeveless top with black straps along the torso in an X shape with black compression shorts for the bottoms, Academy Kushina look. She also adorned 3 cat or fox-like whisker marks on her cheek. This was Mito Uzumaki Namikaze, the second-born child of Minato and Kushina. Ah, common Nachan, I'm trying, just didn't know it would be so hard, I'm almost there. Was the cry of a black-haired boy with red highlights. He has dark purple eyes with a red shirt with a black Uzumaki swirl on the front and black cargo shorts. He too adorned 3 whisker-like marks on his cheeks. This is Menma Uzumaki Namikaze. the third-born child of the Hokage and Uzumaki clan head. A duo looked on with pride, glad to begin the training of their children. These were a 6-foot-tall man with long spiky golden hair reaching his shuta with 2 bangs framing the sides of his face. He wore the standard jonin garb with a dark blue long-sleeve shirt, with matching dark blue shinobi pants. Over this he adorned a white short-sleeved haori with flames running along the bottom and red kanji on the back for Yondaime Hokage. This was Minato Namikaze. The second was a woman standing around 5 foot 7 inches, and she wore simple black shinobi pants that ended at the shins with it tucked into bandages that wrapped along her lower legs. For the top she wore a red rolled-up shirt with the Uzumaki crest proudly adorned on her back. She had long red hair tied into a ponytail as it reached down to her lower back. She stared at her children with a set of loving violet eyes. This was Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze. Minato had to suppress a chuckle as Menma and Mito continued to argue with Yayoi, trying to break them up. "Come on, you 3, let's head inside so your mother can make us some lunch," he said with a smile. The children instantly ceased their antics and appeared in front of their mother with eyes that seemed to be bowls of ramen. They all yelled simultaneously as drool spilled from their mouth onto the grassy plain. Kushina fixed them each with a stern gaze before she sighed and nodded her head with a smile, to which the children started running back to the house as the 2 adults walked at a much more relaxed pace after them. Unknown to the happy family, a set of cold electric blue eyes bore down on them. The eyes belonged to a boy. He had short spiky blonde hair, tan skin with black whisker-like marks adorning his slightly chubby cheeks. He wears a short-sleeved plain black shirt, with black cargo pants and lots of pockets. He stands an inch or 2 taller than his siblings. This is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, child of Minato and Kushina, eldest of the Namikaze siblings, container of the Kyuubi's soul and unknown to everyone around him, a prodigy in disguise. He currently resided upstairs in the main building of the Uzumaki Namikaze estate, where him and his family reside on the top of the Hokage's monument. His room was fairly decent in size, with multiple bookshelves filled with scrolls ranging from basics of chakra manipulation to all of the major hidden villages in the elemental nations. On the wall over his bed resides a large map covering the entire wall with an overview of the elemental nations, with the different countries highlighted in different colors. Red for Hai no Kuni, land of fire, brown for Tsuchi no Kuni, land of earth. You get the point. Continuing to scan his room, he grabs a simple ML bag filled with kunai and shuriken. It's fairly easy to get ninja tools in the house when your parents are the Hokage and a clan head now. He continues to pack scrolls of some kind as well as a spare set of clothes. He makes his bed, which is a basic navy blue comforter with 2 white pillows. With that he heads out his room, and calmly walks down the stairs. He doesn't spare a glance at the 3 children rambling on about random things and continues walking till he exited the front door. Meanwhile his father sat on the table reading through some documents, glanced up for a second as he saw the door close. He starts to wonder as he quickly puts together the only person that could be leaving from inside the house. He shrugs and switches his attention to his other son, who was trying to get his attention about some technique. Mito notices her brother leave as she gazes at the door in sadness. She had noticed that her brother rarely stayed with the family and other left out on his own to do who knows what. She had tried to follow him a few times but lost track of him quickly before eventually giving up on that course of action. She wonders what went wrong and why her Ka-chan and Tu-san had been distancing herself, Menma and Yayoi, from their brother. It angered her, but she had not spoke up about it for a while. Then when Menma and Yayoi started to ask her parents where their Aniki was, her parents gave them the same answer every time. "He is not as special as you 3, don't worry, he will be fine." She hated that answer. The 3 of them had protested vigorously but was silenced and told not to speak of the matter. On separate events they tried to argue further, but their parents were having none of it. They resigned for secretly trying to stay in contact with their beloved older brother, but he seemed to grow distant but held every bit of the affection he always had when he gazed at them. That too didn't make sense to the young Uzumaki. Why is he not angry at us? Why does he hold so much love for us? She knew that if she was in her brother's position she'd hold no small amount of jealousy. Those were the thoughts that plagued her during the night inside, then continued to eat at a more subdued rate. Naruto walked down the steps of the mountain towards the main part of the village and began to think when everything took a turn for the worse. That damn pervert and his prophecy. He thought bitterly as he remembered what he had here around 4 years ago. Flashback no jutsu. The room was quiet in the way only the Hokage's office ever was. Paperwork sat neatly stacked along Minato's desk, untouched. Sunlight filtered in through the window, casting long shadows across the floor. Jiraiya stood near the center of the room, arms crossed, his usual careless demeanor subdued, eyes serious, voice low. The shinobi world is approaching a crossroads, Jiraiya said. I've seen it more than once in my travels. Empires rise. Villages burn. And every time, it starts with a single turning point. Kushina frowned, arms folded tightly. You're talking in circles, pervert. Get to the point. Jiraiya exhaled. A child of prophecy will be born. One who holds great power. Enough to either stabilize the world, or tear it apart. Minato's expression didn't change, but his fingers stilled. And you believe that child is one of ours, he said calmly. Jiraiya nodded. 3 of them, to be exact. Kushina stiffened. 3. Mito. Menma. Yayoi. Jiraiya's gaze was steady. Each of them carries a fragment of the Nine-Tails chakra. That alone puts targets on their backs. If even one of them loses control, the consequences would be catastrophic. That still doesn't explain why you're here, Kushina shot back. We already know our children are in danger. It explains urgency, Jiraiya replied. You don't have the luxury of raising them normally. Silence followed. Minato's gaze drifted briefly to the open file on his desk, red ink stamped across the top. Bounty confirmed. Leaning back slightly, eyes narrowing, not in anger, but calculation. Say what you're really suggesting, sensei. Jiraiya hesitated. Just for a moment. You need to prepare the ones most likely to face what's coming, he said. Immediately. Intensively. That means your time, your attention, your protection, has to be focused. Kushina's voice dropped. All 4 of them are our children. Jiraiya nodded. I know. Then why are you avoiding his name, she demanded. Jiraiya turned toward Minato. Naruto. The name hung in the air. Minato glanced up sharply. He doesn't carry the chakra, Jiraiya continued. Only the soul. His seal is stable. There's no volatility, no external threat vector. Compared to the others, he's safe. Safe. Kushina echoed incredulously. For now, Jiraiya said. Which means he doesn't need the same level of preparation. Not yet. Minato's jaw tightened. You're telling us to delay our eldest son's training, he said carefully. I'm telling you that if you try to raise all for the same way, Jiraiya replied, you'll fail all of them. The words landed like a blade. Kushina's voice sharpened before she could stop it, fear slipping through the cracks of her anger. So your solution is to set one aside? No, Jiraiya said immediately. My solution is to prioritize the fires that will burn first. Minato closed his eyes. For a long moment, no one spoke. Finally, he exhaled. We'll focus on the triplets, Minato said quietly. Their control. Their discipline. Their safety. Kushina turned toward him, eyes wide. Minato. It's not abandonment, he said, opening his eyes. It's triage. Jiraiya nodded grimly. Naruto doesn't disappear. He grows. Just. Later. On his own timeline. The decision settled into the room like dust. None of them noticed the small shape hidden beneath the couch. A pair of electric blue eyes stared at the floor, wide and unblinking. Small hands clenched into fists as silent tears soaked into the fabric beneath him. Safe. Later. Not needed. The words twisted into something else entirely in the mind of a 4-year-old boy. Naruto Uzumaki learned something important that day. That when things truly mattered. He wasn't one of them. Flashback no Jutsu, Kai. With Naruto. Naruto walks at a brisk pace forwards his favorite training ground 43. He likes this one because it lies along the outskirts of the village near training ground 44. He heard some ninja talking about how people call the place the Forest of Death, a weird name. Funny name. Once he finally arrives, it's a very forested training ground with the river running through it. He walks up to some trees where targets W are already marketed out on several trees carved from kunai. He then started to get to work with the most fundamental skill every shinobi learned when first being taught the basics. Thunk, damn, just a bit more to the left. Thunk, that's a bit closer. Thunk, bullseye, he thought with a smirk. He soon starts to repeat the process of drawing shuriken from different angles and keeps going at that angle till he can consistently hit the bullseye. He keeps going till he hits it 100 times over, drawing and throwing them as fast as he can and restarting the exercise when hit anything less than the dead center. He always has been somewhat of a perfectionist, trying to practice these basic skills until he can do it effortlessly. No matter how long it takes, I will become strong. He vowed, I am not weak, I refuse to be weak. He stops his process of trying to quick draw shuriken before string the process while moving side to side, jumping, running as he did all the other movements he had seen ninja do in battle. After all, being a Kage's kid had its perks, going to see the Chunin exams when held in Konoha as well as the Jounin exams on one occasion for his sibling's 5th birthday. It was mine too. He thought bitterly before shaking his head before getting back to the task at hand. This process took much longer as he continued on for a little over an hour before he dropped to the ground lying on his back with a smirk. He laid on the ground staring at the clouds for around 15 minutes before getting up and collecting his shuriken before drawing his kunai. The sounds of steel against wood ensued again, but lasting relatively shorter, being only 45 minutes. His aim being a lot better with this weapon than the former, opposite of most that start with these weapons. Also, having more of these than shuriken helped as to throw more before having to go and pick it up. After he stored his kunai away in his bag before once again relaxing on the grass, finding peace sitting in nature and feeling the air flow on his skin. It always put him at ease. Whenever he felt distraught, he would sit atop the sandame's head and gaze at the village just to feel the breeze. He once again got up before beginning the second part of what became his daily workout. Climbing up a tree, he hung upside down, then beginning to do sit-ups. He remembered when he had first started this routine a couple years ago and could barely manage to do 20 regular ones, but here he is. He stops as he reaches 100 before cloning to the ground and began push-ups. The process continued for a few hours, doing a variety of exercises from push-ups to squats to many laps around the entire training field. Collapsing in exhaustion, he stared up into the clouds from his spot in the shade of a tree. He didn't do any more but smile. He was happy with himself, proud for putting in the work others of his generation do not. He began to think back to when he made his decision and started his training on his own. He had managed to awaken his chakra a little after his 5th birthday, learning the leaf sticking exercise after reading it from the scroll in the family library. Over the year he's managing to learn the henge, transformation, and the kawarimi no jutsu, body replacement. I still can't do the bunshin no jutsu, clone technique, to save my life. He thought, miffed at the fact an E-rank jutsu is staying out of his reach. The library was only accessible with his and his family's blood and to the chakra of other people his parents deemed worthy to enter. His parents had, for he and his siblings, though he suspected it was mostly for them, set up a little test, leaving the history, political, regular fairy tale stories, books of various kinds including basic chakra theory, E-rank and D-rank jutsu scrolls, Fuin jutsu for dummies and shinobi basics open to them. The other stuff was sealed with the only way to unlock is by progressing in Fuinjutsu. It gets more difficult the farther into the library C-rank access being active to someone who has reached level 3 mastery over the art with a more difficult level required for each rank of jutsu or information. This was meant to serve as a motivator for them so that they would wish to become proficient in the art under desire to get stronger. He assumed they thought it would take them longer than it took him, figuring he now has access to the C-rank part of the library. Menma was the first to give up, stating it was too boring and believing fights were won with cool jutsu. Mito quit a while after becoming frustrated with not being good at it. Yayoi took to it like a fish to water as he noted she was just as good as himself, though he started a little earlier due to not being trained by their parents, thus doing as he pleased. After he overheard the conversation in the Hokage office a couple years ago, he had cried for several days on the Hokage monument while he started to think about what he had learned. The Kyuubi being sealed into his siblings had pretty much been common knowledge, considering how much the civilians would praise the saviors of Konoha when they walked around the village back when he was young. The shocking part came when he learned he housed the soul and body. It explained so much but left him with more questions. So that's why they look at me like that. They think it's going to corrupt me, is it? After that, he had researched all the books and scrolls he had access to about what he now knows are called the Biju. While some Jinchurikis can be influenced by their demon, those cases are rare aside from the Ichibi no Shikaku the One-Tails, who mentally tortures his host due to the lack of seal masters in Suna. Otherwise there are very few cases of Jinchuriki being influenced, especially in Konoha, due to the most prominent seal masters coming from them. Naruto puts down the book with a frown. Are they just dumb? Is the childlike question from, well, a child. A very smart child, but a child nonetheless. He always wondered why he was looked at different than his siblings. It had been rare due to him only ever leaving the compound with his parents, but once out of their presence they openly glared at him and even verbally lashed out when trying to purchase something. He had wanted to cry, to go tell his Ka-san and Tu-san about the mean people, but his mind would flash to how he was deemed weak or unimportant, and he would quickly write off that thought. Strong people don't go crying to their parents when something bad happens. He had remembered the tales his parents would tell them of the many strong heroes of the leaf. The tales of ninjas such as Tsukumo Hatake, of the Sannin, of his own parents. He couldn't see people such as them crying, figuring he's seen Jiraiya on multiple occasions, Tsunade as well. Orochimaru stays mostly to himself, though he hears he has an apprentice though. I vow to become strong, the strongest there is. If you're strong nothing could hurt you, if you're strong people wouldn't glare at you, if you're strong your family would find you important. A few hours later. Naruto grunted as he hefts his training bag on his back and starts the trek to his compound. On the other side of the village. Naruto sighs as his stomach growls. He had lost track of time and ended up training till late in the afternoon. He looks up at the sun. 7:15. I got time to make it back before it gets too. Wait, how did I know what time it is? He starts to think on it but lets it go after a while. As he walks through the road he feels the glares on his form, some heavier than others. He quickly decided not to attract too much attention and ducked into one of the alleys for a shortcut he knew from the time he spent roaming the village. As he makes his jogs out the alley, who know what kind of stuff could be in here, he runs into someone and due to his fatigue from earlier training falls on the ground in a heap. Oops, I'm sorry little one, I should pay more attention. Is the call of a melodic voice that Naruto swore he recognized from somewhere. Internally cursing his lapse in attention, he looks up to see a woman looking in her early, mid-20s. She had black onyx eyes with her hair being black, her skin smooth porcelain which almost looked to be glowing with no blemishes whatsoever. She was wearing a black kimono top with the infamous Uchiha fan on the back and dark blue civilian pants. She had two black bangs framing her heart-shaped beautiful face with it running down to her mid-back. This was Mikoto Uchiha, the Uchiha patriarch and his mother's best friend. Naruto's fingers curled slightly at his side. Now, Minato continued, smiling, the first gift. Naruto turned away. He didn't need to watch. But his attention snapped back as he saw three familiar figures step forward. Tsunade. Jiraiya. Kushina. The two Sannin carried massive scrolls. Kushina held something wrapped carefully in cloth. I, Jiraiya of the Sannin, Jiraiya announced loudly, hereby declare Menma Uzumaki, Namikaze as my apprentice and offer him the Toad summoning contract. Hell yeah. Bonk. Stop cursing, Baka. Yayoi shouted, as Menma clutched his head with a yelp. Mito sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose. A ripple of laughter spread through the crowd. Tsunade stepped forward next. I, Tsunade Senju, declare Yayoi Uzumaki, Namikaze my apprentice, she said with a smirk, and offer her the slug summoning contract. Yayoi practically vibrated in place. Finally, Kushina moved. I, Kushina Uzumaki, she said, voice steady, declare Mito Uzumaki my apprentice. And present her with a family heirloom of the Uzumaki clan. She unwrapped the cloth. The blade gleamed. A long katana, its hilt wrapped in cerulean blue, swirling like waves toward a guard shaped into a great Uzumaki spiral. The scabbard matched, etched with flowing patterns that seemed almost alive. Suijin. Naruto's breath caught. That sword. That belongs to the future clan head. His hands trembled. And no. Minato and Kushina stepped forward together. My wife and I have an announcement, Minato said evenly. As of today, October 10th, our children's 8th birthday, I, Minato Namikaze, declare Menma as heir to the Namikaze legacy. Naruto's vision blurred. And I, Kushina continued, declare Mito Uzumaki as heir to the Uzumaki clan. The cheers were deafening. Naruto didn't hear them. Peace can mean many things. For some, peace is the absence of war. For others, it is safety. Belonging. The quiet certainty that tomorrow will resemble today. But for a few unfortunate souls, peace is nothing more than a word, distant, hollow, and cruel. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze had never known any of them. The cheers still rang in his ears as he ran. They followed him out of the compound, echoing through the trees, swallowed only gradually by distance and wind. Laughter. Applause. Celebration. Pure speed that belies someone his age carried the small boy through the forest, feet barely touching the ground as branches whipped past his face and roots blurred beneath him. He didn't slow. He didn't look back. No one noticed him leave. The announcement had drowned everything else out. By the time his legs finally gave out, Naruto found himself standing atop the stone head of the second Hokage. Tobirama Senju's carved face stared forward, eternally stern, eternally unmoving. The irony didn't register at first. Naruto's knees buckled, and he collapsed against the cold stone, arms wrapping tightly around his chest. The sob came before he could stop it. Then another. His body curled inward, shaking violently as tears spilled freely, soaking into the stone beneath him. His chest hurt. His throat burned. His hands clenched uselessly at the fabric of his shirt as everything he had been holding back finally tore loose. They chose them. They chose them. What makes me unworthy? The question haunted him as his world crumbled around him. The sound tore from his chest again, raw and broken, swallowed by the wind rushing past the monument. The village stretched below him, lights flickering, banners waving, people celebrating. Heroes. He laughed weakly, a broken sound that barely resembled humor. Back at the compound, the celebration had reached its peak. Laughter filled the air as cups clinked and voices overlapped. Alcohol flowed freely. Praises were shouted. Congratulations echoed from every corner of the grounds. Minato stood near the thrones, smiling, one arm wrapped around each of his children. Menma was radiant, his grin wide and unrestrained, basking in the admiration with effortless ease. Yayoi bounced excitedly as Tsunade leaned down to speak with her, already discussing training regimens and future plans. Mito said nothing. She stood stiffly, eyes locked on the blade in her mother's hands. Suijin gleamed under the lantern light. Minato noticed first. Mito, he asked gently. Is something wrong? Her fingers trembled. Then she shook her head. No. Confused, Minato stepped closer. No what? Her breath hitched. Suddenly, her voice shattered the air. No, this isn't supposed to be my sword. The laughter died instantly. Every head turned. Mito's eyes burned with unshed tears as she pointed at the blade, her voice cracking but loud, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. That sword belongs to Nisama. He's the eldest. He's supposed to be clan heir, not me. A pulse of chakra rippled outward. It wasn't overwhelming, but it was there, sharp, raw, and unmistakable. Killing intent from an 8-year-old. Gasps spread through the crowd. Why do you hate my Aniki? The word struck like a thrown kunai. Kushina froze. Her mouth opened, no sound came out. Mito, that's not, we don't, her voice wavered. How could I hate my son? Mito stepped back, shaking her head violently. Yes you do, she cried. All of you. You don't know anything about him. And all because of some stupid. A hand clamped over her mouth. Jiraiya appeared behind her in an instant, expression hard, eyes sharp with warning. His grip was firm, not cruel, but absolute. The moment hung suspended. Minato, Kushina, and Tsunade locked eyes with him. They understood. Minato moved immediately, raising his voice and drawing attention away, fielding questions before they could fully form. Tsunade pulled Yayoi into her arms, murmuring reassurances as confusion rippled outward. The damage was done. Among the thrones, Menma remained seated. His hands clenched tightly against the carved armrests, knuckles white. Even when he's not here. His jaw tightened. Even now. Across the gathering, whispers began. Did she say Naruto? Wasn't he the eldest? You mean the fox? Mikoto stood behind Fugaku, fists trembling at her sides. So that's what they did. She turned abruptly. Sasuke. Satsuki, she said sharply. We're leaving. Sasuke nodded silently. Satsuki hesitated, eyes searching the crowd, searching for someone who wasn't there, before following. As they disappeared into the night, the celebration struggled onward, fractured but forced. Naruto wiped his face with his sleeve. His eyes were swollen. His chest still ached. What do I have now? The thought drifted through his mind as he stared out over the village, lights blurring together. His breathing slowed. The tears stopped, replaced by something colder. Something heavier. That was when he felt it. The shift in the air. A presence. He turned. Too late. A massive figure lunged from the tree lean, a white cloth snapping open mid-motion. The Hokage's son out alone. The man thought, anticipation sharp. Jackpot. Squelch. The sound froze time. Naruto felt it before he understood it, a violent pull in his chest, a surge of something ancient and furious. Golden chains erupted from his body. 3 of them. They pierced flesh with brutal finality, one through the kidney, one through the shoulder, one narrowly missing the heart. Blood sprayed across Naruto's face. The man choked, eyes wide with disbelief. Naruto stared. I didn't mean to. Shut up, the man rasped, coughing blood. This is the world of shinobi. Naruto trembled. Kill or be killed, the man continued weakly. The strong survive. The weak don't. Naruto swallowed hard, nodding shakily. The man's expression softened, just slightly. Good, he said. Then listen. With labored breath, he spoke again. Don't mourn me. Just, become somebody. Someone strong enough that I can say who I fell to with pride. Naruto nodded again, tears streaming silently. My name's Ishii, the man said faintly. You deserve to know the name of your first kill. Orange light enveloped his body. Flames. In moments, nothing remained but ash. Naruto stared at the empty space. Then the world caught up with him. He doubled over violently, emptying his stomach against the stone. His body shook uncontrollably as exhaustion crashed down all at once, physical, mental, emotional. Barely conscious, he stumbled to the monument wall and slid down, eyes burning, limbs heavy. October 10th ended with him asleep against cold stone. It had not been a good day. The celebration lingered long after the sun had dipped below the horizon. Laughter slowly thinned into polite conversation. Lanterns dimmed. One by one, guests began to take their leave, some returning to clan compounds, others heading down the mountain toward the still-raging festival below. The anniversary of the Kyuubi's defeat showed no signs of slowing, fireworks would light the sky well into the night. Farewells were exchanged. Promises of future meetings. Carefully measured smiles. Words that meant nothing. Minato waited until the last guest passed through the gates before exhaling. The sound was long and tired. With a practiced hand sign, he reactivated the compound's security seals. The barrier flared faintly before settling back into invisibility, silent, absolute. Safe. At least on the outside. He turned and began the walk back toward the main residence. The Uzumaki Namikaze's home stood apart from the rest of the compound, a three-story Western-style structure amid traditional buildings. Libraries. Dojos, storage halls. A private bathhouse tucked discreetly behind tall hedges. Minato's lips twitched. Yeah. Memories there. He shook his head sharply and smacked himself once across the cheek. I am not a pervert, he muttered. I am not my sensei. Opening the front door. And stopping cold. The air inside was heavy. Not loud. Not explosive. Heavy. Mito stood near the center of the room, spine straight, fists clenched at her sides. Her glare was unwavering, sharp enough to cut steel as it pinned Kushina and Jiraiya in place. Kushina stood opposite her, arms crossed tightly, jaw set. Her violet eyes burned, not with rage, but with something closer to fear restrained by authority. Jiraiya leaned against the wall, arms folded, expression dark. Gone was the laid-back humor. What remained was irritation edged with something far more dangerous, control slipping. Tsunade sat off to the side, Yayoi asleep in her arms, her golden eyes flicking between the three like a judge watching a trial unravel. And Menma. Menma sat rigid on one of the lowered thrones. He wasn't looking at anyone. He was staring at nothing. As if willing someone, anyone, to feel what he felt. Minato took it all in. And made a decision. Nope. This was not a battlefield he could navigate. Not as Hokage. Not as a father. Not tonight. Slowly, carefully, he turned around. Then he walked, escaped, up the stairs toward his room, moving with the kind of speed born not of urgency, but self-preservation. He did not look back. The only sign he'd been there at all was Kushina's eyes flicking briefly toward the staircase as he disappeared. The door upstairs shut softly. No one spoke. The tension stretched. Finally, Kushina exhaled through her nose and spoke, her voice low. Too low to be meant for ears that didn't already agree. Coward. No one disagreed. The third day after the festival felt no different than the first. 3 days since the cheers had drowned him out. 3 days since he had lost everything without anyone noticing. 3 days since golden chains had torn their way out of his body. 3 days since he had killed a man. Naruto had barely slept. Every time his eyes closed, he saw it again, the look on that man's face. The moment realization struck. The shock. The horror. The way his mouth had opened, trying to speak, trying to breathe, trying to live. Naruto squeezed his eyes shut harder. It didn't help. No matter how many times he wiped his face, no matter how much water he used, he could still feel it. The blood. Warm. Sticky. Heavy. Like it had soaked into him instead of his skin. When he finally woke the next morning, the sky was already bright. For a brief, fragile moment, he thought it had all been a dream. Then his body moved, and everything hurt. He returned to the compound on unsteady legs, half expecting someone to stop him. To yell. To ask questions. To notice. No one did. The place was empty. He was grateful for that. He didn't think he could have looked at anyone without breaking apart. Naruto made it to his room and locked the door behind him. He showered until the water ran cold. He scrubbed until his skin burned. Dirt slid down the drain. Grime followed. Dried blood washed out of his hair, from beneath his fingernails, from the creases of his skin. He gagged as the taste of bile lingered at the back of his throat, no matter how many times he rinsed his mouth. When he finally turned off the water, his hands were shaking. He lifted his head and looked into the mirror, blood stared back at him. Not real blood. But he could see it. Red smeared across his cheeks. Across his hands. Across his eyes. Naruto grabbed a towel and wiped at his face. Once. Twice. Harder. The towel came away clean. His reflection did not. He wiped again. And again. And again. It wouldn't come off. Voices echoed faintly from downstairs, his family returning, footsteps, laughter, movement. The sound felt distant. Unreal. Like it belonged to another world entirely. Naruto turned away from the mirror and stumbled to his bed. He collapsed face first into the mattress, then rolled onto his back and stared at the ceiling. That was how it started. Staring. Dozing. Dreaming. Screaming awake. Staring again. The routine didn't change. He didn't leave his room. He didn't eat. Hunger came and went like a dull ache he no longer trusted. His body felt heavy, foreign, like it belonged to someone else. When sleep came, it was cruel. The man's face returned every time. The sound followed. The weight. The chains. This is the way of the world, boy. The strong survive while the weak perish. Survival of the fittest. Just become somebody. Somebody powerful. Naruto shook his head, pressing it into the pillow. Stop, he whispered. The words didn't leave. They never did. Eventually, he stopped trying to fight them. He lay there, eyes open, staring at the ceiling as if it might crack under the weight of his thoughts. This was how the 3 days ended. Not living. Not resting. Just, existing. Elsewhere in the village, Mito Uzumaki Namikaze was pissed. Not loud. Not explosive. The kind of anger that stayed tight in her chest and refused to fade. It had been 3 days since her birthday. 3 days since her brother had been passed over. 3 days since Naruto had been, unofficially, technically, legally, removed. She still wanted to refuse the title. Still wanted to shove the sword back into her mother's hands and tell them all exactly what they could do with their laws and traditions. But they hadn't given her the time to breathe. The day after the ceremony, Kushina had taken her straight to the clan library. 2 hours a day. Every day. Clan law. Politics. Succession. Responsibilities she never asked for. It was there, between dry parchment and colder truths, that Mito found it. A clause. Buried deep. If the eldest child of a clan head is passed over, they are no longer legally recognized as a child of the clan. Her fingers tightened around the scroll. Naruto hadn't just been ignored. He had been erased. Her eyes moved to the next passage. The acting heir may, at their discretion, restore the passed-over member to the family under the authority of the heir. Mito read it twice. Then a slow, dangerous smile formed on her lips. So that's how it works. If Naruto no longer belonged to their parents, then someone else would decide where he belonged. Her anger didn't vanish. It settled. Back at the compound, Naruto shivered in his sleep. He blamed the nightmares. Mito was already on her way to the Yamanaka compound by then. The walk helped her think. Everyone had changed since the festival. Their parents and godparents had doubled down on training. No excuses. No softness. Yayoi spent her days with Tsunade. Menma with Jiraiya. And Mito herself with her mother. If she had to guess, it had everything to do with that stupid prophecy. Not that she minded. She wanted to be strong, stronger than any kunoichi before her. If she had to carry a title, then she would make it mean something. The Yamanaka compound came into view, flowers arranged neatly out front, the familiar scent of herbs and soil lingering in the air. She waited at the gates while a guard went to retrieve her sister. Her thoughts drifted, unbidden, back to her brothers. Naruto and Menma were nothing alike. Menma was loud. Brash. Always looking outward. Naruto was quiet. Reserved. Always watching. Naruto kept to himself. Menma never stopped talking. When they were younger, she and Yayoi had looked at Naruto like he was unstoppable. A superhero who always stood back up, no matter how hard he fell. Menma had looked at him the same way. Something had changed. Ever since the disaster of that dinner, ever since Mikoto Abakan had brought Naruto home, Yayoi had been hesitant. Not distant, just careful. Mito suspected fear. Fear of saying the wrong thing. Fear of being seen. Their parents hadn't exactly been subtle. Menma, though. Menma was an unknown. She didn't know what he thought about Naruto now. Didn't know if he blamed him, pitied him, or resented him. That worried her more than she liked to admit. Hey, Nei-chan. Mito turned as Yayoi came bounding toward her, bright smile already in place. Her own expression softened immediately. She took her sister's hand, letting Yayoi chatter about flowers, Ino, and Tsunade's latest training idea, as they began the walk back toward the compound. Mito listened. And thought. No matter what they decide, I won't let him disappear. A forest clearing lay hidden deep beyond the village outskirts, where the canopy thickened and the air smelled of damp earth and river water. A narrow stream cut through the terrain a short distance away, its steady murmur the only sound breaking the silence. Until it shattered. A blur burst from behind a tree. A small fist lashed out toward a tall figure's ribs, fast, angry, unrestrained. The man sidestepped casually. The boy snarled and followed up with a kick, leaping forward with surprising force for his age, only for his ankle to be caught midair. The world flipped, and Menma slammed into the dirt with a grunt, the breath knocked clean from his lungs. He rolled, sprang back up, and charged again. Punch after punch. Kick after kick. Even a desperate bite when he got too close. All of it was useless. The taller figure flowed around every strike with infuriating ease, redirecting momentum, slipping just out of reach, until suddenly. Thunk. A knuckle tapped the top of Menma's head. Not hard. Not gentle. Enough. Menma crumpled, clutching his skull as stars danced in his vision. Ha 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 ha. The man threw his arms wide dramatically. You're gonna have to do better than that if you ever want to land a hit on the great toad sage, Jiraiya. Menma groaned, rolling onto his side. Shut up. You damn pervert. He forced himself to his knees, teeth clenched, eyes burning. I'll hit you. Even if it's the last thing I do, he snapped. Or my name isn't Menma Uzumaki Namikaze. He slammed a fist into the dirt. I'm gonna be so strong you'll beg me to slow down. I'll surpass you, Ka-chan, Tsunadeba-chan, Kakashi and I, even Tusan. His chest heaved as he glared up at the white-haired man. I'll become the Godame Hokage. Jiraiya smirked. Menma didn't say the rest out loud. Yeah. And you'll be there too, Aniki. Watching. Jiraiya tilted his head, eyes sharp beneath the humor. Oh, he drawled. Then what are you waiting for? He leaned forward slightly, voice dropping just enough to sting. Or are you still the same crybaby brat who needed his big brother to bail him out every time things got rough? Something snapped. Menma roared and launched himself forward, chakra flaring wildly as he attacked with renewed ferocity. His movements were reckless, but faster. Stronger. Desperate. Jiraiya laughed as he danced back, dodging each blow with practiced ease. That's it, he said, pleased. Good. Don't run from that feeling. Menma didn't hear him. All he could think about was catching up. All he could think about was never needing anyone again. Jiraiya watched carefully as the boy attacked again and again, eyes thoughtful beneath his grin. Yeah, this one's burning for something fierce. If the world doesn't break him first, he really might bring peace. Kill or be killed. The words echoed in his skull. Become somebody powerful. Naruto stared at the ceiling, unmoving, eyes glassy and unfocused. Moonlight spilled through the window, tracing pale lines across the walls of his room. He hadn't slept, not really. Every time his eyes closed, he saw it again. The blood. The sound. The way the man's body went still. Damn it. His voice was hoarse, unused. He hadn't moved from this bed in 3 days. 3 days of staring. 3 days of nightmares. 3 days of lying still while the world moved on without him. I'm pathetic, he muttered. The word tasted bitter. I'm lying here while they train. While they're praised. While they move forward. His fingers curled into the sheets. I need to get stronger. The thought wasn't desperate anymore. It was cold. Measured. Strong enough that the Hokage regrets his decision. Strong enough that my name reaches every corner of this land. His lips parted. I swear it. For a moment, his voice faltered. Naruto Uzumaki. He stopped. Jaw tightening, he shook his head once. No. Just Naruto. I swear it on the name Naruto. Silence followed. Then, movement. He sat up for the first time in days, joints stiff, body protesting. Ignoring it, he swung his legs off the bed and stood. His gaze drifted to the shelves lining the wall, scrolls, books, notes accumulated quietly over years. His hand moved on its own. He pulled one free. Kuchiyos no Jutsu. The summoning technique. Ha. He unrolled the scroll slowly, eyes scanning the familiar script. He'd seen it before. Read it before. Dismissed it before. Not today. A B-rank ninjutsu. A contract between shinobi and beast. A bond forged in blood. His eyes narrowed as he read further. If no contract exists, the technique may instead transport the user to the land of animals with which they hold the greatest affinity. Naruto froze. Note, this method is extremely dangerous. His grip tightened. Survival is not guaranteed. In some cases, the summoned location will respond with immediate hostility. So I could die. The realization didn't scare him. If anything, it steadied him. If they don't kill me, he whispered, I'll gain the strength of an entire clan. Images surfaced, Jiraiya laughing. Orochimaru's shadow slipping through the world. Monsters who survived because they dared to. I heard that's how the pervert did it, Naruto muttered. And the snake bastard too. A small, humorless smirk tugged at his lips. If they survived, so can I. He rolled the scroll back up and slid it into his bag with care, as if sealing a promise. Turning away, he headed for the bathroom. The mirror greeted him with hollow eyes and a thinner face, but beneath the exhaustion, something else burned. Resolve. As water began to run, Naruto exhaled slowly. Yeah, he murmured. My life's about to get real interesting. A pair of dark onyx eyes stared into matching ones belonging to a boy in a black high-colored shirt, white cargo shorts and blue shinobi sandals. Compared to her navy blue high-colored shirt with a gray skirt over black compression shorts and black sandals. The one Sasuke wore in Shippuden. And her long black hair in a high ponytail. This is an all-out spar to see which of you has progressed the furthest in your training. Hold nothing back as the winner will receive a gift. The gruff voice of Fugaku Uchiha speaks out as his gaze bores down at his two youngest children. The elder twin Satsuki, the princess of the clan, and Sasuke, the young prince of the clan. They both get into the stance of their clan's taijutsu, the interceptor fist. As they stare into each other's eyes looking for any weakness in them. Satsuki's eyes displayed a calm but great confidence as well as a little bit of arrogance. Sasuke's eyes showed determination as well as agitation at the lackluster smirk on his elder sister's face. Ready? Their father's voice rang out as he gets a simultaneous nod from the two. Then Hajime. The training ground was silent, you could hear the wind gently blowing the leaves on the ground as the two siblings continued to stare into each other waiting for the other to make a move. Half a minute passes before Sasuke sprinted forward at speeds that would make lots of third-year academy students jealous, lashing out with a punch with his left arm aimed at her face to wipe the smirk off her face. The young Uchiha princess flows around the strike before aiming a low kick at his right knee that forced him to the ground. Sasuke undeterred rolls to right himself on his feet to see a knee coming forwards his face. Blocking the appendage, he grabs onto it and pulls only to find no resistance before barely seeing the other leg flying forwards his chest and sent rolling on the ground for a few yards. Fugaku kept his steely gaze as he stares at his children, his daughter settling back into her stance, knees bent a little with her body angled to the side, her back arm in front of her chest with an open palm out facing the ground and the other bent at her side ready for action, a light sweat forming on her forehead. Sasuke had some dirt on his clothing while the sweat stuck some hair to the forehead as he too pops back up to his feet while panting lightly. His stance a little different from his sister's, bring his arms on either side vertical with his chest wild body also angled slightly. Satsuki is faster clearly and has the better overall form and flexibility, allowing her to flow around or redirect attacks rather than block. Truly a solid match for the clan's style. She'll be a force to be reckoned with when she awakens our eyes. Fugaku internally comments while staring at the kids who've re-engaged with each other, Satsuki taking significantly less hits than Sasuke. Sasuke, choosing to change tactics, launches a few training kunai at her before charging again in a zigzag pattern. Seeing the oncoming weaponry, she pulls out a kunai of her own before weaving or parting, though one managed to hit her left bicep, which would have surely drew blood had it been real. That she not mean it did hurt though, leaving a faint red mark of agitated skin contrasting with her creamy skin feather noticeably. Momentarily distracted by the stinging feeling in her arm, she barely noticed the form of her brother already upon her form before she was sent back by a relatively strong kick, though not enough to make her fall. However, pressing his momentary advantage, he follows up with another kick to break her hastily put up guard before landing and jumping and spin kicking her back, which sent her tumbling. Letting the feeling of pride rise in his chest as he stared at the form of his sister trying to regulate her breathing and picking herself up. The dirt all over her clothing and the disheveled hair proving that she wasn't as unscathed as she'd been most of the fight. Interesting, that was quite the maneuver, Otuto, I'm impressed. She speaks out with a bit of surprise and mirth in her voice as she rises from the ground and gets back into her stance. A small upturn in her lips signaling a grin had appeared on her face. You better start taking me seriously, Ne-sama. I've been training. This isn't going to be the same as our last spar. He speaks out. HMPHH is his only reply as before he can react his sister sprints at him with a speed surpassing his own. Steeling himself, subsiding his surprise, he rushes forward in order to meet in the middle. Naruto walked aimlessly through the streets in a daze, pondering on what his next move should be. Whether to go attempt the Kuchiyos or wait for a later date. Deciding on the latter, for he would need to gather his supplies and tools for if things turn hostile. As that idea was out of the window, he started to ponder again what should occupy his time. 1. 30 foot is his thought as he states up at the sun to guess how much time he had before returning to the compound. He resigned himself to make a decision to move into another house in the compound. Being that he was technically allowed to, with him basically disowned. He still couldn't believe that day really happened. Being unknowingly disowned and then getting your first fill on accident was a long day. Shaking his head from the thought, he starts to ponder on how exactly to move before he noticed the whispers of the people and different reactions to his presence. Most looked at him with contempt, some looked at him with a little bit of fear, few looked on with indifference, even fewer looked on in respect for a son of their Kage. A lot of the former were opening sneering at him, while some would turn away as they lock eyes. Cowards. He muttered emotionally under his breath as he returned some of their glares with one of his own. Walking much slower as he continues to scan the streets, channeling chakra to his ears to hear the whispers of the people he will have to protect in the future. There he is. The fourth's failure. Ugh, just look at him. How does he share blood with Menma-sama, Mitoheim, Yayoheim, Uzumaki-sama and Yandem-sama? Disgrace to his family. How dare he call himself the fourth son? Demon. He scoffs before he continued walking, stopping the flow of chakra. Their words meant nothing to him. Words of the weak do not sway the strong. Though the pang in his chest would say otherwise. Huff Ha breaths out a tired Satsuki, looking like she's been through the ringer with dirt and bruises covering her person with rips in her clothing, sweat cascading down her person as she greedily took in oxygen while looking at the down form of her brother who was laying on the ground flat on his back, even more dirt and bruises on his person with a thin trail of blood falling from his forehead. Do Huff you yield? She ground out, inching her way closer to his form. Sasuke stared into the sky before hearing her words and begins to grit his teeth. Even when she's dead tired, the superior mocking in her voice still stays. Gritting his teeth, he drags himself back up to his feet and grins at her. How about one last move, Ne-sama? So be it. They both run through a set of hand seals before putting a hand to their mouth. Katan, Gokakyu no Jutsu, fire release, great fireball technique. A few hours had passed and Naruto found himself in a clearing wearing a black sleeveless hoodie and gray shinobi pants, wraps tied at the calf. He had a small scroll inside one of the inner pockets containing everything he deemed he would need to survive, with a weapons pouch on his right leg. Taking a deep breath, he starts to run through a set of seals and mutters the name of the technique while slamming his hand on the ground. Kuchiyos no Jutsu, summoning technique. And with that the blonde disappears in a puff of smoke, far from Konoha. TCH was the wince that came from the prince of the Uchiha clan as the clan nurse dressed his wounds. In the medical bay of the clan, his sister was getting her own wounds treated on the bed across from him. His mother was present, chatting about something or another. His father and elder brother were probably attending to their clan and ANBU responsibilities, respectively. Apparently, he and his sister had been brought here after the match had concluded. He knew he had lost, as he was the one to lose consciousness for a short period after they both decided to finish it with one last Gokakyu no Jutsu, great fireball technique. His sister's fireball overwhelmed his due to his exhaustion and kept its pace toward him as he collapsed. His brother quickly appeared before any damage could be done, getting him out of the line of fire. He lost consciousness as he heard his father declare Satsuki the winner. Looking over himself, there wasn't any damage too severe, just a bunch of small scrapes and bruises caused by impacts with the ground and his sister's heel. He refocused as his mother addressed him. "Hn." Mikoto sighed as she figured her child wasn't paying attention. She cleared her throat to get the attention of her children present. "We should return home so I can get started on dinner." "Imiko has said you're all good," she finished, turning to the door upon hearing a faint, "Hi, Okasama," and "Hn," respectively. Exiting the building, the three members of the clan head family made their way toward the middle of the clan district where their house resided. They walked through the market district of the clan. Many sent nods and waves of respect toward the matriarch of the clan. She, of course, returned said nods with waves and small smiles of her own, keeping up her formal image in front of the public. Her children did the same, being accustomed to this routine since they started walking. After a while, they arrived home. Taking off her sandals, she made her way toward her room to put on something more comfortable. Satsuki, seeing her mother head upstairs, turned toward her brother. Sasuke stared at her, curious, wondering what she had to say. "Overall, Sasuke, you need to improve your balance and your forms. It felt too easy to get you off your feet. Also, work on your flips, they were sloppy, and you landed wrong at least once or twice. That's something others can take advantage of." She started almost like a teacher, as if listing everything wrong from the academy. If it were anyone else his age telling him this, he probably would have brushed them off and walked away by now. But his sister was one of the only people he truly respected. She, along with his elder brother, was extremely talented, more so than him, being the youngest. He trained hard, trying to bridge the growing gap, and would take any advice he could from that goal. "But I will say that your speed and aim with throwing weapons have improved. You're certainly superior to me at the latter. You're stronger than me, as expected of a boy, so don't feel too special. Your speed is nothing to scoff at for someone our age either. Based on the spars we've had with other children of the clan, feel proud, Sasukun," she said to him with a smile, calling him by the name she did when they were very small. Sasuke blushed slightly and nodded, trying and failing to keep in a smile at the praise from his sister. Even though they were twins, she always acted and carried herself as if she were older, though he didn't mind it. Satsuki began to head upstairs to wash off the dirt and grime accumulated on her person before turning to her brother a quarter of the way up the steps. "You're still not faster than me though," she said, sticking her tongue out before continuing upstairs. "Hn. Poof asterisk." Blinking as the smoke dissipated and what replaced the peaceful scenery of the Shodai's forest stood a jungle, vibrant, wet, and humming like it had a heartbeat. Thick vines twisted like veins through towering trees, and the air was hot with breath. He lowered into a crouch, small hands pressed into the mossy floor, eyes wide and shining with excitement. "I did it," he whispered. "I really did it." Quickly patting himself to confirm the location of his belongings, he stood, brushing off his knees and peering into the dense green. "Okay, so, which animal does this jungle belong to?" The jungle didn't respond, not with words. But something shifted. Slowly. Silently. Like the trees were holding their breath. A low growl rose from the underbrush, so deep it made his ribs vibrate. Eyes, amber, slitted, intelligent, lit up the dark like stars through smoke. 1. 2. 10. 20. Tigers. But they didn't move like animals. They watched like people. Like kings. The child took a step back, lips parting. "Oh." He blinked. Wait, since when was there a tiger clan? A long, sleek shape stepped forward, bigger than any tiger he'd ever seen in a book, its fur marked with glowing runes, its stare ancient and unblinking. It continued to stare. He stared right back. And then, a voice echoed out, low, regal, and amused. "Who are you, young one? And how did you appear here?" The boy straightened slowly, forcing his hands to stop their slight tremble as he met the gaze of the rune-marked beast. His voice cracked slightly, but he held firm. "My name is Naruto. And I summon myself." There was a pause, like the jungle itself paused with him. Leaves rustled overhead, stirred by a breeze that hadn't existed a moment ago. The tiger's eyes narrowed, the runes along its body pulsing with golden light. Behind it, the others remained still, forming a silent semicircle of muscle and menace. "You summoned yourself," the tiger repeated, its tone unreadable. "No contract. No pact. No guide. Just instinct." Naruto nodded, fists clenching at his sides. "I've been studying for weeks. I wasn't sure it would work but I knew I would appear in front of the animal I am most aligned with." A low rumble passed through the gathered beasts. Not a threat, but something deeper. Recognition. Curiosity. "And what of the chance that where you appeared would be dash?" A separate tiger step spoke up as it raised its paw, claws sharper than many blades appeared before it spoke again. "Hostile." Naruto quickly refocused, discreetly looking around himself. The trees. The tall grass. The canopy. Eyes previously unnoticed seemed to glow from all around. He was surrounded. The lead tiger stepped forward again, paws silent despite its massive frame. With each step, the ground seemed to bow slightly beneath its weight. His earlier estimation of 20 had been off its mark by a significant margin. There were upwards of 50 and those are only the ones he's noticed so far. Time to see if they remembered him. He has been around this area long enough to know his way home without a second thought. As he made his way through the forest he began to think of his family, more so his siblings. A smile crossed his face as he thought of them. When they were young and before the fool came with his prophecy they were inseparable. They trained together however brief that lasted, they ate together slept together most nights. Yayoi and Menma staying close to him when it would storm, Mito would always try to follow his example no matter what it was. As he thought back, it reminds me a little bit of hero worship, but he soon perished the thought. It was probably just a phase, most little sisters looked up to their older brother. But they really were close, he missed those days life was simple. His thoughts then went back to the party. Memories of that night still haunt him as the announcement repeats in his head like a song sung by a jester, as if to mock him. Fists tightened as the details of the night played out before he took a deep breath and unclenched his hands. There was no need to get worked up about it. He broke out of his thoughts as he spotted the gate leading to his home. "Home," he spoke out, words not feeling quite right leaving his mouth. As he reached he laid his hands upon the seal gate opened letting him through before relocking once he makes it past. As he followed the path down, the beauty of the compound glowing from the light of a setting sun could have the likes of feudal lords offering compliments but it wasn't anything he hadn't seen thousands of times. Growing long since accustomed to the sight. He didn't glance back as he passed the main family home, though its silhouette loomed like a monument behind him. It stood tall at the compound's rear, basking in the last light of day, a grand, Western-style structure, personally designed by Minato and Kushina. The exterior bore smooth white walls trimmed with rich wood and stone accents, and broad windows lined both floors. There was an attic that stored memories and a basement that held old training equipment, a personal library filled with scrolls and first editions, and a study that once echoed with the sound of Kushina's pen scratching late into the night. 2 guest rooms for honored visitors. Spacious bedrooms for each of the quadruplets. And, of course, the master bedroom, tucked beneath a custom-etched ceiling mural of the Uzumaki crest, woven in gold and crimson. Behind the house was a massive field, trees littered throughout it being sealed by the tree line at the edges of the compound. This is where training would be done as well as any social events hosted. Everything in that house had purpose. Legacy. Luxury. Love. And yet Naruto couldn't remember the last time it had felt like home. His footsteps veered off the main path and toward the modest trail leading to his own house. It wasn't large, nor ornate, many others in the compound having the same design, but it stood with a quiet dignity, traditional in its making, with dark timber framing pale walls and a red-tiled roof that caught the dying light like embers. A short wooden fence framed the house, interrupted only by a single sliding gate marked with the faint spiral of the Uzumaki crest, faded, like it hadn't been touched up in years. The engawa wrapped around the front and side of the house, bamboo blinds half-rolled to shield the interior from wandering eyes. A lone stone lantern sat at the corner of the porch, surrounded by a neatly trimmed patch of moss and a swept dirt path leading to the door. Sliding open the wooden door, he stepped into silence. The air inside was still, touched with the faint scent of cedar and ash. The interior reflected someone who had only just begun to settle in. The main room was open and bare, save for a single low table and two thin floor cushions, worn from age, not use. Tatami flooring stretched across the space, unmarred and spotless. Along one wall were the scrolls and supplies he brought back with him, organized precisely, but their limited number made the shelves look emptier than they should have. He hadn't had time to furnish the house. Everything inside had come with him from his old room before he left for the summoning world. No decorations. No personal touches. Just what he needed to survive and study. The space didn't feel neglected, it was clean, maintained, cared for, but it lacked warmth. It wasn't a place built for comfort. It was a place to exist. To the right, a small kitchen, plain clay stove, a basin of clean water, a sealed pantry, and a handful of hanging herbs to keep the air from feeling too stale. No more than the bare essentials. His room was tucked to the left. The futon was neatly folded in the corner. His map of the known continent lied on the wall across. A few books lined the low shelf beside it, mostly history and sealing theory. A scroll rack sat nearby, its contents wrapped tight with precise knots. Above the window, strung from a thin piece of red thread, hung a tiger fawn, his only trophy, a reminder of where he'd been, and the beasts that had taught him to survive. Across the hall, the extra room sat empty. Unused. Quiet. He cleaned it though before he left. Dust never had time to settle. Whether it was meant for a guest or a memory he hadn't quite let go of, even he didn't know anymore. Naruto stepped further in and slid the door shut behind him. It wasn't much. But it was his. And for now, that was enough. As he went to disrobe himself of the rags he left the forest with a sound came from the front door. Making his way there he had a good guess as to who it could be. They somehow had a knack of being able to tell when he would reappear after an extended absence. Opening the door it seems his guess held true as at their st the door stood. It's good to see you in good health Onie-sama, one of his dear little sisters, Mito Uzumaki Namikaze. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the empty training ground tucked behind the Namikaze estate. Menma panted, sweat trailing down his temple. His fists were wrapped in rough cloth, now stained with dirt and faint streaks of red. He struck the tree trunk again. And again. And again. Knuckles thudding against bark. Over and over until his arms ached and his shoulders begged for rest. But he didn't stop. A sharp exhale left his lungs. A final jab. Then silence. He stepped back, breathing hard, the ache in his hands grounding him. Why did he feel this way? Why did he keep coming back to mind? Naruto. The name alone made his chest tighten. His brother. His older brother. Flashback, the boy who stood tall. Menma was 4, barely old enough to tie his sandals properly, when he saw Naruto beat down 3 kids twice his size. It wasn't graceful. It wasn't even smart. But it was loud. Fierce. Wild. One of the boys had called Menma a spoiled brat. Naruto didn't even hesitate. He flew into them like a storm, swinging and shouting like he was invincible. No technique. Just instinct. But he won. Menma remembered the feeling of Naruto standing in front of him, scratched up and grinning. "Nobody talks down to my brother," he'd said. Menma thought that was the coolest thing in the world. He beat down at the training post with more ferocity as memories continued to fill his mind. Flashback, a glance that said everything. He was 6 when things felt wrong. An old vendor muttered under his breath when Naruto walked by, something about wasted blood and cursed lineage. Naruto didn't react. Just kept walking. Menma frowned. "You didn't hear him?" "I did. So why didn't you say anything?" "Because I don't care what weak people think." But his voice was too flat. Too quiet. Menma couldn't shake it. That wasn't strength. That wasn't how his brother used to be. His breath started to thin as he continued to shake his head trying to keep the memories from flowing in. Flashback, brought home in the rain. Mikoto Uchiha stood in their front entrance, soaked from head to toe. One hand on Naruto's shoulder like she was holding him back from something worse than the storm outside. Kushina's eyes narrowed the moment she saw him. Again, she snapped. Naruto's lip was split. His right eye swollen. He said nothing. He was fighting 3 boys, Mikoto said softly. Older ones. He didn't start it. Kushina's tone didn't change. He could have walked away. Menma had been halfway down the stairs. Frozen. The Naruto he knew never walked away. 7th birthday party asterisk. The field buzzed with laughter and pride. Menma and Mito stood center on a stage made from earth. Yayoi twirled around in a too big dress. Kushina's arms were wrapped around them, beaming. Minato clinked a glass. To the future of the village. Menma caught sight of Naruto, barely. Standing just outside the door. Not even trying to be part of it. When Menma turned to point him out, Naruto was gone. The bark of the post cracked as Menma punched it again. Not from power. From anger. "You used to be everything I wanted to be." The words escaped him before he could catch them. "You stood up for me. You fought like you had something to prove." Another punch. Slower this time. "Now you just, take it. Like it doesn't matter. Like you don't matter." He stared at his shaking hands. "You made me want to be strong." He lowered his fists. "Let the silence stretch. But if you're done fighting, then I guess I'll just have to take it from here." He turned from the post. And walked back toward the compound, not as a boy chasing someone else's shadow. But as one determined to cast his own. Mito stood quietly in the entrance for a moment longer, hands clasped behind her back as Naruto stepped aside and let her in. She bowed her head slightly in thanks, still rigid with formality. "You can relax, you know," he said, not unkindly. "It's just me." I know," she replied, voice tight but soft. She followed him into the house, her sandals brushing lightly over the tatami. Her eyes darted around the modest space, taking in the sparse furnishings, the scroll rack, the faint scent of herbs. She looked like she wanted to say something about it, but didn't. Naruto gestured for her to sit and poured a cup of tea, the two of them settling at the low table. The silence stretched, not uncomfortable, just unfamiliar. He studied her from across the table, the light catching the red of her hair and the faint furrow of her brows. "You've grown a lot," he said, lips quirking up into a smile. "Not just taller, either." Mito blinked, surprised by the compliment. "Thank you, Onie-sama. I've tried to improve." "You don't need to impress me," he said, sipping his tea. "You were already amazing when we were kids." The words hit her harder than he could possibly realize. She shifted in place, looking down at her cup as heat crept up her neck. She still remembered the nights she'd trail behind him, mimicking everything he did, how he tied his sandals, how he held his chopsticks. Now, here he was again, older, stronger, and somehow even more unreachable. "I've missed this," he said simply, breaking the silence again. "Just having you around." Her fingers curled around the rim of the cup. "Me too." She wanted to say more, so much more. How much she'd worried. How much it hurt to watch him disappear from their lives. How she always watched the trees in case he returned through them one day. But instead, all she managed was, "Would it be alright if I visited again sometime?" Naruto raised a brow. "Of course. You don't need to ask." She smiled, small and shy. "Still. I wanted to." As the sky outside deepened to dusk, their conversation turned to softer topics, childhood memories, silly stories, a few jokes that still made them laugh even now. Mito's formality slowly melted, though every time Naruto looked away, her eyes lingered on him longer than they should have. Eventually, she stood to leave. "I should get back before they start wondering where I went." Naruto walked her to the gate. "Thanks for coming, Mito." She hesitated before stepping out. Then, on impulse, she turned and hugged him, not tightly, not long, but it was enough. He returned the gesture easily, warmly. "Good night, Onia-sama." "Good night, Mito." She left with her heart racing, footsteps light. He stood at the gate for a moment longer, watching the path she'd taken. Then, with a quiet sigh, he turned back to the house. Over the next few weeks, life settled into a quiet rhythm. Naruto spent his days wandering parts of the village he once knew, some things the same, others unfamiliar. He trained alone in the mornings, sometimes visited by the tigers from his contract. Occasionally, Mito would stop by again, never unannounced, never casual. But each visit became less stiff, more natural. Yayoi passed by once too, dropping off a sealed lunch and vanishing before he could even open the door. He smiled when he found it. And the village stared. Whispers followed him, as they always had. But he ignored them now. Autumn turned colder. Leaves began to scatter in reds and golds. The academy loomed just over the horizon, January 1st. Change was coming. And Naruto would be ready for it. Just a couple short weeks, he thought, making his way along the outskirts of the village toward his new training spot. He wanted to best imitate the jungle of the tiger's domain, and the closest place he could find was Training Ground 44, better known as the Forest of Death. He walked casually up to the gate and slipped inside. The forest lived up to its name, truly terrifying creatures roamed here. He could sense them, especially in the restricted area. The beasts must be something else if even part of this already restricted forest is sealed off, he thought. He wasn't ready to brave that inner section, not yet. But he made do. Some of the beasts he'd seen since he started training here were the stuff of civilian children's nightmares. But none of them made a sound quite as chilling as that one. The one that laughed like a human, a woman, something not right. During his sessions, he often heard psychotic feminine laughter, screaming of blood and violence. He had no idea what sort of creature it was, but he always made sure to avoid its area. Even the memory of the laugh made his body shiver involuntarily. He left it alone and began his routine. Hours passed, and the young blonde was drenched with sweat. The Forest of Death came with a bonus, bloodthirsty predators that hunted you as you trained. It was great for stealth practice. "Get gone, or get eaten," he chuckled to himself as he rose to his feet and stretched. Naruto was mid-stretch, arms raised high, body sore but satisfied, when the laugh returned. That same unhinged, blood-curdling cackle, closer this time. His body tensed. Instinctively, he dropped into a crouch and reached for his tanto, eyes scanning the trees. Snap! A twig broke behind him. Then, came a voice. Husky, amused, and far too close. Most people avoid this place because they value their internal organs. Naruto whirled, blade raised, only to nearly fall back at what he saw. She stood upside down, feet stuck to a low-hanging branch, grinning at him like a fox with a fresh kill. Though you, Blondie, are clearly either fearless, or stupid. Wild violet eyes, a trench coat too long, a fishnet undershirt, and a smirk that could gut a bear. The woman dropped from the branch and landed in front of him without a sound. Enko Mitarashi, she said casually, waving like they were old friends. You new meet for the academy? Naruto blinked. No. She raised a brow. Oh. Then what the hell are you doing in my playground? Naruto just blinked again, then looked away, his cheeks reddening. Enko's eye twitched. The kid wasn't answering. She cocked her arm back and casually threw a kunai at him. Still no reaction. She frowned, reaching for another one, ready to knock it off course, just in case he really was that out of it. But before she could, a golden chain shot from his back and clanged the blade aside, snapping back into his body just as fast. Now that got her attention. Her lips curved into a wide, feral smile. Hey, Gaki, she purred, eyes sparkling. Let's play a little game I made. Naruto looked up, eyebrows raised, back on alert. Enko grinned wider, nearly splitting her face. I'm going to use you for target practice, she said sweetly. And you're going to try not to die. Sound fun? Naruto blinked again. Surely she's joking. He looked again. She wasn't. His eyes widened as she began pulling out kunai by the dozen. Where the hell was she keeping all of those? Pure, genuine fear bloomed across his face. Ready? Go. And with that, the barrage began. Naruto screamed and bolted into the trees, his voice echoing loud enough to rattle birds out of branches. Mito, help me. A crazy snake lady is after my manhood. Elsewhere in the village a young re-headed girl jerked her head up from what she was reading. I feel a disturbance. January 1st arrived with crisp air and a pale sky. The chill in the wind carried the scent of pine and frost, but there was no snow, only a thin morning mist curling over the rooftops of Konoha like a veil. The Uzumaki household stirred with subtle chaos. Yayoi darted through the halls, half-dressed and munching on dried fruit. Mito sat in front of the mirror, braiding her hair with quiet precision, while Menma stood by the door, arms crossed, waiting like a soldier before a mission. Kushina's voice bounced down the hall, fussing over final touches, while Minato offered calm reminders about focus and first impressions. They soon exited the house as well as the gate surrounding it. But Naruto wasn't there. He had left before dawn, as he always did. Outside the academy, the courtyard buzzed with energy. Children herded together in loose groups, laughing and pushing, some still clinging to parents or big siblings. Clan elders and shinobi watched from afar, measuring futures before they began. Naruto stood apart, leaning against a stone wall, the hilt of his training blade resting against his shoulder. His attire consisted of a simple plain gray hooded jacket, left let down as his blonde spiky hair flowed in the breeze. Black ninja pants ending at his calves fashioned his bottom half as it finished with black shinobi sandals. His new uniform fit well, cleaner than expected, though his presence drew more side eyes than welcomes. His attire consisted of a simple plain gray hooded jacket, left let down as his blonde spiky hair flowed in the breeze. Black ninja pants ending at his calves fashioned his bottom half as it finished with black shinobi sandals. He didn't flinch. He didn't expect warmth. Irika's voice eventually rang out across the courtyard, steady and loud, calling for formation. Students scrambled into uneven rows, half curious, half confused. Naruto slipped in last, silent, unnoticed by most, but not by all. Satsuki stood a few rows over, arms loosely crossed, eyes scanning until they found him. Mito looked straight ahead, only for her gaze to slide briefly his way, heartbeat skipping before she caught herself. Yayoi smirked when she spotted him. And Menma hesitated, gaze catching for the briefest moment, before facing forward. Naruto didn't react. The air was cold, but not unkind. This was a beginning. And beginnings, he knew, were where legends chose to rise.